I was going to hit play. Or
Oh,
play.
you're
You know
right.
what I mean? I was going to hit. Hey, so today, hey, how do we double, triple, and quadruple up our business in the next couple of days? Because y'all know, come Wednesday, ain't nobody answering no phones.
To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly.
I mean, not as if they answered phones in the first place, but you know what I mean.
True. True.
So, guys, U.S. Thanksgiving this week, Black Friday, Cyber Monday next week. Pretty big week. Do you guys do the whole Black Friday thing?
No,
I do. I it just depends. It just depends if I'm looking for something right now. I think for me, I don't think we're actually specifically looking for something, but if something pops up, like if it's a shiny new iPhone or a MacBook or something like that, then I'll be keeping my eyes on it. But it's not intentional of what we're kind of doing because, hey man, Christmas is coming up. You want to get those Christmas gifts, put them under the tree and get ready for it.
Yeah.
Well, for me, every time I open the Amazon app, I'm like, oh, I needed that.
Yep.
Yeah, right. And then you go to the next one. Yeah, I need that too.
yeah, I really want that. Oh my God, a new dehydrator. You know how fast I can make the dog's sweet potato treats if I had a new dehydrator? Yeah.
It's always the worst when you see the flyers for the US because everything's so much cheaper than like Canada. So it's like, do I take that drive to Buffalo or Windsor on Friday morning?
No, you ain't going to Buffalo.
If you're gonna take a drive to Buffalo this week, you better go on your snowmobile because they got hammered this weekend. I am so jealous, boys. I was talking with a buddy of mine. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? He goes, well, let's just grab the sleds and go down to Buffalo. Like, I mean, you're talking like cars were buried with like 1.5 feet, 2 feet of snow. You can go just down the street. Like you would jump cars at that point. It'd be so much fun. I don't know if the people that own the cars would appreciate it.
I don't think they would appreciate that.
So boys, we to everybody watching, listening, apologize. We're on a little bit, a couple minutes late this morning because we were trying to really put together, how could we help you be the most productive this week with half a week. Some of you might be like, you know what, I'm good. I don't need to be productive. I'm going to take the week because I pretty much did it every year. All my holidays fell on U.S. holidays when I was deep in the business. When you guys are. Ryan, what's your outlook this week? What's your big kind of mission? What do you want to accomplish this week? And same thing with Jeff.
Yeah, of course. So the big thing for me is first off, control what you have that's already outgoing. So you should already kind of have your loads that you kind of got from last week that's for this week. So it's really important. Hey, if you're going to a new shipper, you're going to a new receiver, find out what their hours are, even if they normally are first come, first serve, because I've been in that situation where, hey, we thought it was open Thursday, Friday. We had to hold the freight till Monday, right? So understand what you're doing right now. I think we're looking at today's the 21st of the month. You should kind of already be at your monthly goal anyways, in terms of your GP and everything that you're kind of doing, right? So I just honestly believe that, hey, you're kind of just farming a bit. And I don't know, we have luxury in Canada, Dan, that every time that the US has a holiday, I just call Canadian customers because they're going to be in the office, right? And kind of vice versa, right? So if there's a Canadian holiday, call the US guys. If you're looking to procure more business for next year, because nobody's closing anything right now. But I think for me, it's more of the being proactive instead of reactive. Play defense this week and do a little bit of offense, but I'm playing defense this week to understand because, hey, Thanksgiving is a big holiday and it's all about family. It's about tradition. I know everybody is like all about grind and get things done and try to get things done. But I think people should unwind this week, take some time to yourself and understand that, hey, we've got one more holiday after Thanksgiving, which is going to be Christmas, and just enjoy the flow of it all, right? So for me, like I said, I'm just playing defense this week and with a little bit of offense.
I like what you said there because it's so true that, and especially if you're a Canadian company that deals with US companies, this week is kind of like okay, I could catch up on paperwork. I can catch up on this. I can catch up on that. A lot of people, even in manufacturing companies, take the Thursday, Friday this week off. I mean, depending on where US Thanksgiving falls. But it's interesting that you said two things there. And one was, you should already be at your GP mark because we should always be at 75% of where we are. We should always be at the 100% of our goal. But also the fact that the flow, right? I'm talking to a lot of salespeople, and they're like, "Oh man, I'm pushing for this last couple months because I'm behind. I'm behind on my goals. I'm behind on my projections." And at this point, it's commission breath if you're pushing,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
So I love that you talked about the flow. Jeff, what do you what's your I know
Yeah.
you're trying to crunch so much into so little this week.
Yeah, and the thing is that a lot of the Japanese CPG companies, they have a thing where they need to make their sales and budget at the end of every month. So now you're losing 2 days. So when you talk about ROG, receipt of goods, you have to really start, or you should have started projecting transit times last week, because you're losing 2 days this week. You got the drivers that are taking holiday. You're talking about possible 4 days, right? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then you've got let's just say you have shipments coming out of California that has to go to New Jersey, right? So you think about the transit days there, and you have to meet them, but you're losing 4 days possibly, right? The guys want to stay home with their families, so you have to back that up. So right now, instead of waiting for maybe Thursday and Friday to ship, you're already shipping today and tomorrow, because you're trying to gain those extra days by talking with your customers, seeing how they're putting things. Because remember, there's a lot of pressure on them to push shipments out as well. So they have to double up, because most of them in the US are closed on Thursday and Friday. Okay. So they're now doubling up on Monday, today, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Are your carriers prepared? Have you discussed that with your carriers to see whether or not they have the capacity to handle that? Because it's just not your customer. It's all the other customers in the US, right? And shippers who are on the same playing field that are most likely doing the same thing. So you should have been talking to those carriers last week to try to get them in sync and give them some kind of a forecast for this week. If you didn't, you might be a little bit of trouble. So today will be a little bit heavier, I expect it, as well as tomorrow. And Wednesday, probably a half day, because a lot of US companies close down maybe at 1 o'clock on a Wednesday, so people can hit the airports, get on their planes, and go see their families, etc. So, yeah, it's you got to be on top of that and always be discussing with your shippers, your carriers, and then if you're a shipper, with your service providers. So, yep,
I love that, because also, Dean's been echoing for a while now.
Yeah.
Drivers, they're like, okay, I'm going home, and this is when I'm going home, and that's it. So you either put me on what I need, and let's face it, the good ones and the ones that have been smart have made a lot of money this year already. So it's like, guys, listen, I'm going home with my family. Finally, I'm going to have that downtime. They're going to cut out midweek. Whereas, a couple of years ago, I remember we had drivers pick up on Wednesday, and they were rushing stuff through for the weekend. They weren't home with their families for Thanksgiving. They were like, no, man, we're working. We're doing what we got to do. And then that whole thing has shifted, right?
Yep.
And you brought up such a valid point, Jeff. You better be having those conversations with your suppliers and saying, guys, listen, like, because twofold, right? Ryan brought up a really good point. You think they might be open Wednesday, but what if they're closed Wednesday as well? Now you've lost all your GP because you didn't do your job. You've lost all your GP plus probably more to hold the truck over till Monday. Not to mention, you might not even have the capacity. So now you're leaving a customer stranded because you didn't do your job and you weren't proactive. And it brings up a valid point. And I'd love, well, maybe people don't want to share it, but were you guys proactive last week? Everyone watching and listening, were you proactive last week and calling your customers and saying, hey, any kind of forecast next week so I can prepare? Were you proactive in calling your suppliers and saying, hey, what's it look like? What do you got going? Where can we call an audible and make things better? Actually, a really interesting question.
Yeah. And you know something? I mean, it's not unheard of, but if you're one of those shippers out there that wait until the last minute and you're trying to grab capacity, you're going to pay a lot more than what you normally would, because these guys want to get home. And if you want that shipment to move, it's going to cost you some big bucks if it's going to take away from the driver's family time. Trust me.
And twofold on that too, right? Because you look at as a sales rep, you want to be able to have those conversations and not do any new carrier onboarding this week. That's
No,
something I would not recommend. Do not go
no.
on LoadLink and bring on new carriers because you're not going to be able to trust that, right? And I feel like relationships are made, they're strengthened or they're broken over holiday weekends, right? Because at the end of the day, hey, if you're a shipping customer, they're with their families, they do not want to be getting a call while they're at the dinner table or even that whole thing, right? But I think too, even for carriers and sales reps, you're going to see a lot of last minute loads come up because hey, things happen. So carriers are dropping the ball. So just be smart with it, right? Like just don't think like, hey, I'm going to make a boat money on this. Just understand that, hey, if you have the capacity, don't commit to something that you can't deliver on because like I said, relationships will be strengthened or broken this week.
That's absolutely a huge point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You know, how many times have I remember there was this one gentleman at the company I used to work with, and he would never leave the office on Fridays or the day before a holiday.
Yep.
You know, like even Christmas Eve, everybody's gone by noon. He said, nope. And he was there until 7 or 8 o'clock. And he would get customers, gosh, I'm going to say at least every holiday for sure. And if not, at least once a month on a Friday, where somebody just happened to drop the ball. Somebody just happened to.
It happens.
It happens.
Not prepared. And it made, I mean, he had some great relationships and he just, that was his thing.
Yep.
You know, like he would be at the office until, you know, if everybody cut out at 1 o'clock, he'd be at the office until 7 o'clock on Wednesday. And it would, and you know, without a doubt, somebody would drop the ball. Somebody would, you know, like, and how many times has it happened to you guys where like you think you have everything in place and everything's smooth and then just one little glitch and it's like the domino just knocks over and it's like, and you're trying to get ahead of it to stop it, you know?
Oh yeah,
Well,
on the shipper side, it happened to me. Absolutely, when you get your capacity in there and something happens and they can't pick it up. And one thing, let me just revert to what I was saying earlier. You should be talking to your shippers probably last week about the Thanksgiving holiday, the Christmas holiday, the New Year's holiday, and start planning and creating that schedule. And then if you're collaborating the right way, you're taking the information that your shipper's sharing with you and going right back to the carriers and saying, hey, just want, you know, to be prepared. But this shipper is taking an extra day on this day. They normally come on Friday, but they're taking Friday off. It all depends on what day the holiday, right? If a Christmas falls on a Saturday, I mean on a Friday, sometimes they take a Monday off. Sometimes, not all the times, but Thursday, Friday. And you just have to prepare yourself. I mean, that's good business right there. That's good business to do.
And every company's different.
Absolutely. That's why
every company's different, right?
That's why you have to make those phone calls, right? Especially if you have a carrier that's doing multiple pickups in different states for different clients. You know, what is good for one may not be for the other one. So you got to write all that down and share that with your carriers for sure.
Don't leave. I used to start at the beginning of November.
Yes.
Yeah. Beginning of November, I used to start and I used to say, okay, so just I'm trying to get, and it was kind of fruitless at the beginning of November because a lot of them were like, well, I don't know what the schedule is going to be. Orders drop weekly, And I was like, okay, I just want to, and like the conversation was a continuation every week from the beginning of November. And it was, okay, what's on tap? What's on schedule? Is there any way that you can give me a forecast? Like any way whatsoever, because if you can give me a forecast, I can take that forecast and bring it forward and hopefully, you know, cross your fingers, kind of, hopefully fix any issue that might arise down the road, right?
Yeah, and you can't look at data over the last 2 years because man, it was all over the place. I mean, what shippers normally did in peak season, definitely not in this peak season, if there really isn't. The volumes that they had in 20, in 21, not going to have it this year at all. So you can't just say, I'm going to go off the data from 20 and 21 and I'm going to tell the carriers what to expect. Not going to happen, guys. Will not happen.
And I think one of the things too, when it comes to when we're thinking of like holidays, people think that, hey, Thanksgiving, like people are moving stuff for Thanksgiving or Black Friday this week. It's usually the opposite. I feel like not Canada, like Thanksgiving stuff would already been in stores maybe like
Oh,
two
yeah,
weeks ago.
absolutely.
So don't think in the mindset that, hey, it's the holiday, they got to move stuff like for the holiday. No, they're
They
prepping
already
for
did it.
2 or 3 weeks. Like even Dan could attest to this. Even in Canada, as soon as Thanksgiving finished here, we're looking at Christmas already, in our department stores and everything like that, right? So just understand that, hey, it's there's going to be a mixed bag of everything. There's going to be things that are super urgent, but there's things that there's going to be a little flexibility. So it's really important, like Jeff always says, have the conversation, and you guys don't always have to agree with your shipping manager. It's the ability to have the ability to disagree and understand, like, hey, maybe this doesn't need to move this week. Doesn't need to be urgent. It's like we can push it off and get you a better rate next week just because of everything that's going on. And don't look at the data, because you're right, it's going to be up and down. It's not going to be consistent. And we use data as our number one thing. I'm looking forward to seeing Dean here on Wednesday. But at the end of the day, it's like we got to understand that you're in the real time things change, right? So just understand that.
Yeah, and when you look
Yeah,
at
and you make a sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, when you look at ecom, right? Black Friday is going to be the tail of the tape, and I say that because let's just say that there is a huge buying trend, and they're buying like wild. You better be prepared to be able to fulfill the inventory that was sold on Black Friday and get that into the store maybe next week, because maybe they underestimated what they were going to sell, because those things do happen, right? So you have to be able to pick that up. Like I said, that data in the past, I wouldn't use it, and make sure that, if you're working with an e-com or a shipper that had more inventory than what they thought they were going to sell, or vice versa, be in contact with them. And then you have to adjust that and tell your carriers what to expect for the following week in order to get that product into the store in the second week of December, depending upon where it's coming out. So,
and you have twofold with that, right? So I'm finding on the e-com level, more and more things are like next day delivery. So
True.
they're already in the warehouses, right?
Yes.
So you have that store level for Black Friday where they open the doors, and like, Jeff, it's nothing like that in Canada. Like I remember going for Black Friday things years ago, and like you're standing in line, and then in this nice, polite line, like you're not pushing against the glass for Target to open to get that $300 TV, right? So you have the e-com level. At the e-com level, everything that you're pretty much going to buy is in the warehouses right now. So there's not going to be that big push to the warehouse. There might be a replenishment afterwards,
that's what I'm talking
but there's
about.
not going to be that big push. But you do have the possibility of all that overstock that they've been saving up. Those are going to be the huge Black Friday deals. And they're not going to be replenished because they already have too much of it. So I think personally, my personal kind of crystal ball this year is we're going to actually be shocked at the little replenishing that's going to happen before January. That's what I say, because I think these companies, I mean, if you look at, just read some of the stuff up on the Targets, on the Walmarts, on the Canadian Tires, on all of these major corporations, the Lowe's, the Home Depots, they overbought all sorts of stuff, and their warehouses are jammed, and they're like splitting, and they're saying, listen, we're going to like liquidate this stuff. And think about it, you need a patio set for next year, and it's like 70% off. I'll buy it now and store it in my basement until next year. You know what I mean? But they're not replenishing that until spring. So I think we're actually in for a very interesting flip when it comes to replenishing this year.
Well, we see, and you know what? But what about the reverse logistics come after the holidays with all this inventory? How much of that, if what you're saying is true, you're going to see an uptick on those return. There always is. People overbuy, and it's just like, nope. They'll buy 3 of the same things, different sizes, whatever fits right. The other 2 go back. And if that's true, we're going to see a huge return season. Huge.
I think so too, because Yeah, sorry. I think like even with the reverse logistics is that, you know, a lot of people they'll buy those things, like the 3 things, just to get the free shipping, right? Knowing that they're only going to keep the one thing and then they return it back. And you know, I think we're seeing the uptick as well of, hey, companies buying like those pallets of like stuff that's been returned, and then they try to, that's like a side hustle, right? Like drop shipping or things like that, right? So I think you're so right with the reverse shipping. It's same story like I kind of told you guys last week, where Amazon's like beefed it up, where you get the same day delivery and same day returns, which is unheard of when you kind of think about it, right? So yeah, it's interesting.
Yep.
And that's hitting, again, that's hitting e-com market, which most of our audience isn't going to really be in, because they're not, you know, it's the FedExes, the UPSs, the DHLs that are going to be picking all this stuff up from your house, right? So again, that's what I'm saying, is that return, that OS&D, that would normally, I mean, if you're a warehouse, I think you're going to definitely be feeling that, the ups and downs of it. But I think as just a, you know, general practitioner in logistics, you might not see it this year. You might not see it.
Yeah,
you know.
And Drew actually brings up
Maggie says that's my side hustle.
I know. I was just laughing at that.
You know, it's funny. Bring up Drew's thing here, because funny enough, I was walking with my wife. We were shopping yesterday, and I was telling her I miss Future Shop. You know, Best Buy is not the same, even though they're owned by the same company. But it's funny that you mentioned it, because like Future Shop was an experience, and I feel like we're losing that a bit too. We're losing that experience of like when we go into a store, you know, and having like being, oh my god, seeing that gift that you want. So being able to buy it online and then say, hey, I'll test it out. If I don't like it, I'll just return it. You know, we have that mindset of we're accumulating things, but not accumulating the experience that goes with it, right? Like, I'll ask you, gentlemen, that experience that you guys went to go buy your engagement ring for your wife, that was a whole thing, you know, like even buying like your wedding suit, everything like that. Those experiences, there's some things that are just like that, but now we're just buying stuff just to buy stuff. So as we kind of lose it, we'll see the difference between brick and mortar versus e-commerce as well.
Well, you know, it's funny you say that. I was watching something on the weekend. And this woman was saying that the malls and the brick and mortar are actually coming back, because people are losing touch of that experience that you just talked about. And it was funny because I'm listening to it and it caught my ear right away, because all we've been hearing is the exact opposite, right? Like anybody we speak to, you're like, are you kidding me? I can sit here like this, and in like 3 hours I can have what I wanted, and all I got to do is pick that up, put it down, and I can get back to doing what I'm doing. But they're saying that people are now kind of craving that. Well, you know, COVID is still around, but it's not like the pandemic around. And it's like, okay, I want to get out and I want to do it. And then what she was saying is they're also finding the malls are not like they were a couple of years ago, where it was literally like, come mid-November, you don't step foot into a mall unless you're absolutely postal, because it was just so many people and there was so much ignorance and everyone's rude and you know, all that comes with it. And they're saying, so it's been like this flip. And it's interesting because last week during the week, my wife and I went to a few stores, and I'm looking at the parking lots, which are usually like jammed, and they're not. Like even in a store like Canadian Tire, it was like half full.
Yeah.
And it was like kind of like, wow. And that's where I like to go around and like touch things, right? Like the tools and all that. You're like, yes, Ryan.
Make sure you sanitize, my friend.
Yeah. And it's like you go down the tool aisle and you're like, oh yeah, what can I use that for? You know, and you start really thinking about that stuff where you don't get that experience online, right?
Yeah, I went to a mall on Saturday at 7 o'clock. I mean, I hate going to malls. I think I already said that, but it was barren. I couldn't believe that we walked in there and there was hardly anybody walking around, nobody. And that was a Saturday night, like around 6:30, 7 o'clock. And I was like, things are changing. Things are
and you
changing.
know, I think like
I don't go. I go maybe in a mall twice a year.
Yeah, and I think like with the season changes, people will like, I'll tell you guys, for example, like we went to the mall, went to different stores, but the reason for me going there was to get a winter jacket. So seeing everybody kind of like, it's getting a little bit colder here in Toronto, people are getting new winter jackets. I'll see like we were packed. Like the lineup for winters, we were probably in line for like 15, 20 minutes. And it's kind of like unheard of to kind of see. So I think as people like Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong here, but do people get gifts for people for Thanksgiving other than, hey, let me bring a bottle just for like I'm going to
Yeah,
somebody's
that's
house.
pretty
But
much it. Like an apple pie, mincemeat pie, whatever it might be, flowers, wine for sure, beer. It all depends on whose house you're going to. But yeah,
Did you say
usually
mincemeat pie?
yeah. Ugh, it's disgusting.
Like actual ground beef in a pie?
No, 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 no. It's just it's like I can explain it. Do you ever have a fruitcake?
Yep.
That's in a pie.
As a kid, those were staples. I think
It's
they
just
made them in April for Christmas the
man.
next year.
It's
Yeah.
disgusting.
Oh man, don't put a hate on mincemeat pies, man. The Scottish pies are amazing, man, with the different things. But it's so we understand that, right? Normally for Christmas we take gifts over and things like that. So I think with the uptake, and you know what? Like as you guys were kind of saying, Friday it wasn't busy. I think people are waiting for Black Friday. Like I've told my wife, why would you buy this now when hey, let's wait for the flyers to kind of come out and let's get a better deal, because the return process kind of sucks too. You got to go wait in that line, get that, and then you start shopping. So you're like, oh man, I waited 20 minutes to return this item. I'm not really in that mood to go buy stuff because I'm gonna have to be in this line again for 20 minutes, right? So I just think a lot of people just kind of just waiting for that Black Friday. I know in Toronto we had those early Black Friday deals, but I actually looked at the Walmart Black Friday deal that starts on Wednesday, and it's a lot better than what's going on right now. So it just makes sense to wait.
Oh, even better than the earlier ones?
Yeah. You can get it's pretty cool.
You see, they hosed me in hard, those early ones. I'm like, dude, I don't have to wait. I'm in, man. I got a new workbench table thing. Like, oh yeah, man, that's cheap. I got that. Yeah. It's like half off. And they better not have a better. I'll just return it. I haven't built it yet. So,
look at like Drew. It's like what Drew said. Pearson. He said basically that you're going to see a lot of things from last year heavily discounted. You're going to see. I mean, let's face it. These warehouses are trying to push inventory. Because inventory space costs a lot of money. When you have them there, and if they sit there for months on end, you're losing your shirt. So they'll heavily discount it, like I said a long time ago, and they're going to be pushing that stuff, product, especially the stuff that had like last year's year on it. I mean, what are they going to do with that? I mean, either burn it or just get rid of it, because I don't know, but I think you're going to see a huge uptick on that.
That brings up a really good point, Jeff, and a thought that I just had. The conversations you can have with your customers this week about like what's your company doing for Black Friday, the overstock, the items that are, what does that do for you when they all sell? If they don't sell, what's the plan moving forward if this happens? And the casual conversation, and authentic conversation of oh man, well we got 10,000 square feet of lounge chairs that we need to sell. What happens if they don't? Like what happens if you don't sell those? Like what is the implications on the beginning of 2023? Because now you got 10,000 square feet you're paying for pretty much January, February, March, April, May, and maybe into June. So almost half the year you now have that warehouse space still for that product that was bought a year ago.
Right. You start discussing with them about direct to ship, direct to end user, and bypass the warehouse. Maybe in smaller shipments instead of it hitting it. We used to call it ghosting. It looked like it hit your warehouse, never did, and then it just goes direct to the end user, and invoices and everything seemed like it came out of Shreveport, Louisiana, and it never even hit there. But the invoice shows that it was there, because you're going direct. I mean, there's so many different ways of doing that if you have to do that because of warehouse space, because it's going to cost them.
It's interesting. Did you hear that, Ryan? The verbiage? We would call it a blind shipment, right?
Yes, exactly. I was just thinking that blind and a double blind, right?
And blind and double blind shipments.
Yeah, those were the fun days, man. When you're making those BOLs, those are fun, man.
The other way.
Yeah, and as well as we're talking too, right? We're talking about like retail and things that consumables as well. When you look at different industries, like if they do like steel pipe or they do roofing or different things, it's still important to have those conversations because capacity is going to be a little bit tightened, whether it be flatbed, open deck, whatever you're kind of moving. So I think the one takeaway for everybody this week is you should have had the conversation last week or a couple of weeks ago, but have the conversation like today, like, find out exactly what doing and find out what
your call.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Exactly. So I think it's extremely important. You have those conversations and then understand, right? And then now that you've had that conversation, start having the conversations for Christmas, because it's going to be the same thing, even more.
And New Year's. And New Year's.
And New Year, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Beauty. Good one. Hope you guys got some stuff out of that, everyone. I hope it was more than just a damn, I didn't do that last week. Shit. Hey, but you know what? Choice by choice to get closer to or further from your goal. Make a choice today to do it, right? Like Rico said.
Yeah, let's go.
Hey? Yes, sir.
Awesome, man. So today was amazing. I think this was truly impactful because it's something that's relevant for this week specifically, right? So definitely go ahead, use tips and tricks, and definitely get it done. So I want to thank everybody for coming out this morning. I know it's a great week ahead of us. We got a great guest tomorrow who's going to be talking about video marketing. If you've never done video marketing at all, definitely tune in, because she'll definitely go through those steps. And then we got Dean on Wednesday. So if you guys like this video, definitely make sure to check our replays at 12 p.m. and 3 p.m. Eastern time, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you guys for everything.
Have a good day.
Centurion Trucking, our motto is people before profit. Today's market requires more transparency, consistency, and focus on what our clients need to win. Centurion Trucking and American Logistics are poised to help their clients achieve and surpass their targets. If you're looking for a team that honors your needs, dreams, and aspirations, then get a hold of Daman at American Logistics or Centurion Trucking